There's a buzz in the air, an energy and enthusiasm that's spreading. Can you feel it? From boardrooms to the streets to the communities that make up this region, there's an excitement about being present here, in this moment, in this place. In 2025, we saw a total ecosystem in motion. It's advanced manufacturing, energy, AI, robotics, and life sciences colliding to build things the rest of the world is only just dreaming about. It's advanced manufacturing and workforce and a vision that we drove toward together. The momentum is transformational. From large industrial wins to unicorn status for Pittsburgh-born companies. It's no surprise the region is being recognized as a top U.S. metro area for new job creation and as the 2025 Startup Ecosystem of the Year. This region isn't just a dot on the map. We are the destination. And last year, the world didn't just visit Pittsburgh. The world convened here. But the real momentum, it isn't the buildings or the balance sheets. It's in the partnerships and in convening around a vision for our region's core. That commitment is driving initiatives around economic development, housing, a clean and safe environment, and engaging relevant civic spaces. Together, we're creating a heart for our region that is vibrant, attractive, and welcoming to all residents, employees, and visitors. Big challenges? We have the solutions. The future? It's part of our DNA. 2025 underscored an alignment of policy and passion. We have a collective belief that this region's best days are happening right now. This is our purpose. This is our progress. This is our place. And we are the Allegheny Conference.
Invited guests, please welcome Stephanie Pashman to the stage, CEO of the Allegheny Conference on Community Development.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to see all of you on this beautiful day in Pittsburgh, and welcome to the 2026 annual meeting. It is just a real pleasure to be with all of you here today to celebrate the successes from this wonderful last year we all had and think about the ambition and what comes forward. This event is to celebrate what we all do together. I think you saw some snippets in that video, and it's just really inspirational to think about how much we've come to do. In 25, we saw record investments, planned developments on former brownfields, and the continued growth of advanced manufacturing all across this region. You'll hear about the work today and the accomplishments throughout this program. I'm not going to go deep or belabor them. These successes just remind us that the groundwork we all laid over the last several years, we are now reaping those benefits. The critical engagement of the Allegheny Conference and all of you, our regional investors, has moved this region to notable momentum, and now we have sustained impact. This region's current trajectory exists because of the intentional, forward-facing leadership of all of you, our business and our civic community. If you look around this room, the people beside you are making things happen. Our progress would not have been possible without that and the shared purpose that we all believe in. That leadership is reflected in the organizations who are our annual event sponsors, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank them today. Our annual sponsors, I'd like to thank Giant Eagle, PNC, Highmark, and UPMC. And we also have two special annual meeting sponsors, PA American Water and Beatrice. Thank you all for your support. And now I'm actually going to hand off to two of our critical partners in making this work happen. As you all know, the Allegheny Conference was kind of the nation's first public-private partnership, and that is really the fabric of what we do, is work with the public sector to move things forward. So I'd like to recognize the shared strength and power is amplified when we work alongside each other, our elected officials. We are thrilled to have both the county executive as well as the mayor with us here today. Their continued participation and presence improves our economy and the quality of life for all. I'd like to first start by welcoming up County Executive Sarah Namarato, who has been a key partner in the work we've led on downtown revitalization. She's a passionate advocate of investments in clean energy. She championed EOS, Mainspring, and Core Power projects in our community. Under her leadership, the county has invested in business development, improvements to business districts, Main Street, and continues to make housing a signature priority. Please join me in welcoming the county executive to the stage.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, come on, this is the annual meeting. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for that warm introduction and for inviting me back to speak at the annual meeting. And since I took office in 2024, the conference has been a tremendous partner to the county on our economic development work and our shared collective wins for this region. And of course, we have worked closely with the conference and many of you in this room to launch the $600 million plan to revitalize downtown Pittsburgh. If you frequent downtown, you know that the next chapter of downtown is not going to look like the one of the past, where people just come into work or see a show occasionally on the weekend. We are building together a new vision for downtown, and the county has invested in it like never before, especially in residential conversions. We are also super pleased that RAD stepped up and committed $5 million in public money to Arts Landing, which will be opening in just a few weeks on time. And so I just want to thank Kendra and the team at the Cultural Trust and really everyone here who contributed to that impressive project. We are so excited to cut that ribbon. Can we give them a round of applause? And we are already seeing the fruits of our labor. The mayor and I were actually just with Jeremy and his team at the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership, cutting the ribbon on another small business, a candle making shop, which is great, called Pittsburgh Candle. I'm sure he'll tell you all about the scented candle that he made. He really loves it. And you know, I've supported the county making these historical investments in downtown because downtown is the beating heart of our region. We need the Golden Triangle to thrive for an entire 10-county region to thrive. And downtown is more than just the economics. It's how we see ourselves as a region. It's how we feel as a region. And when we see that iconic skyline and beautiful sister bridges broadcast globally during the NFL draft next month, I hope you feel a tremendous sense of pride because you are part of creating the vision that is happening downtown. But of course, we know that that vision doesn't stop at the Golden Triangle. That's why I've tasked my team at the Department of Economic Development to think about our 25-year strategic vision for our region through our Allegheny Forward comprehensive plan. We will take into account where growth is happening and where investments need to be made, from housing to transit to job centers to childcare. We have a smart and strategic approach to maximizing resources and leveraging our shared investments. We're focusing both on geographic regions where we can strengthen business corridors, like logistics and advanced manufacturing by the airport, and sectors where we can strategically expand by bringing vertical integration and suppliers into our region. Working with partners like the conference and the leaders in this room, we are unlocking important insights, relationships, and critical investments that lead to companies like EOS announcing they're moving their headquarters here, growing their workforce, and staying put in Allegheny County for the long haul. And none of this happens in a vacuum. So I want to thank you all for coming today, for your vision and your leadership and investment in our shared community and our shared prosperity. No one's success happens alone. It will continue to take partnerships and collaboration to move us forward as a region. Thank you.
Thank you, County Executive. Mayor Corey O'Connor is the 62nd mayor of the city of Pittsburgh. You got an intro, like a brief one. I know you're excited. You can stand up. And he's the 12th mayor the Allegheny Conference has worked with since its founding. A few short months into his term, he's focused on public safety, permitting, downtown investment, and improving city operations. He's making weekly calls to businesses to invite him to the city. I don't think there's a place you go in the city right now where he's not there. And we enjoy seeing his vision for the city come to life. So please join me in welcoming Mayor O'Connor.
Thank you very much. So the candle story. Okay, so get to the new store and they have a 3-year-old daughter who's behind the counter, tells me that I have to buy the pink candle. I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. So then they also tell me that they have banana bread. I'm like, oh, great, I haven't eaten anything. I'll have the banana bread. Well, it's actually a cent for a candle. Not the best scent, but I am taking it home to my wife, so I'm getting brownie points. But that's the unique thing about Pittsburgh and what we're seeing each and every day. That was a storefront owner that's been an entrepreneur for 10 years in the north side and finally saw an opportunity to open in downtown Pittsburgh. That's the Pittsburgh story. That's what we're trying to tell. That's why each and every day we go out and we see new things in all of our neighborhoods. And you know, somebody said, how are we going to get people to come to Pittsburgh? We just have to be ourselves. We don't have to sell anything but Pittsburgh right now. We have a lot of momentum. And yes, the NFL draft is coming and 50 million people are going to be watching us, and we understand that, and the hundreds of thousands of visitors. But it's also the daily activity that happens each and every day in rooms that we're sitting in companies that you are supporting, that you are investing in. That's what we have to continue to do to grow this city. We want everybody to raise their family in the city of Pittsburgh, and we can do that by providing opportunities. And you all in this room are providing our residents with those opportunities. That's why each week, and I'm actually headed to the office now, we call 10 to 20 companies, whether they're local or national, from small businesses to large, to just say Pittsburgh is welcoming, we're open for business, we're speeding up permits, we're investing in main streets and storefronts so that you have a place to go, and it's right here in Pittsburgh. I will say, if you do get a call from me, it is not AI, it is not a prank call. I did call a restaurant once, and I said, can I please talk to your owner or your manager? I just want to say thank you for opening in Pittsburgh. And the lady on the other line yelled at me and said, what is your order? We're very busy right now. So I have had a cold Italian hoagie sitting at a pizza shop for months at this point. But those are the types of things that we are capable of doing in the city that other major cities are not able to do. And it's the partnerships with the county. As the county executive mentioned, we do these events each and every day, but they're important to see not only the mayor's office, but the county as well. Because that's how we speed up permits. That's how we invest. That's how we grow economic development together. And that's how we're going to rebuild our city and our region. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you to the Allegheny Conference for the amazing work that they do. They send us companies each and every week to call as well. And it's those types of partnerships that are going to get us over the top in this region. So again, thank you for having me. Stephanie, thank you to you and your team for all the amazing work that you do, as well as your board chair, and all the great partners that we have at the conference. Thank you very much.
Okay, I spoke earlier about the intentional forward-facing leadership of our business and our civic community, and it's what makes the conference what it has been for more than 80 years. Grounding our regional work in shared purpose is dependent upon having strong leaders. For the last 3 years, the conference's board has been chaired by David Holmberg, the CEO of Highmark Health, and he has been a critical partner to me in all we have done. David is well known for being a listener to voices inside and outside of the organization and a learner. He identifies unique opportunities and has been key to the work we've done to convene the region stakeholders around downtown and got that work done. With his leadership, we built a new vision where we are going and how we get there, and we are grateful for his partnership and leadership in aligning so many voices. It is my true honor to welcome him to the stage so you can hear directly from him about where we've been and what we've accomplished together. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you, Stephanie. I hope you'll tell my wife all those kind things. You know, It's truly an honor to be part of the Allegheny Conference. Pittsburgh's having a moment. I mean, I hope everybody realizes that. We came out of the pandemic, maybe stronger than some other cities, but we saw all the challenges that we had and the things that we faced, and we knew we could do better. But as you fast forward to where we're at today, Pittsburgh really is having a moment. We have an airport, with a new front door for us that's spectacular and, was very much a team effort. We have the draft here in 30 days, where literally tens of millions of people will see us and have a chance to experience Pittsburgh from afar. You also forgot, Stephanie, the number one downloaded show or streamed show in the world is The Pit, which, that's right, then we've got to give it up. The Pit is based on Allegheny General and reflects the real world that, all of our clinicians at UPMC and AHN and across the country are dealing with. And one of the reasons why they picked Pittsburgh was, Noah Wiley said, was because Pittsburgh isn't overexposed. There's something going on there that's interesting, and we thought it would be the perfect place to come to. And so, again, I think we're having a moment, and we should all be very proud of that. At the same time, we're coming off a landmark set of investments. In the past year, and if I have this correct, we saw $16.1 billion in commitments made to the region. That's up from $400 million the following year. That's exciting. We saw a direct flight be added to Dublin. We saw a group of you, many of the business leaders and academic community, government, who went to Dublin, where we talked about opportunities to do business and work together to find ways to grow jobs and to make things happen. All of that is part of the equation of how we get better. All of that is part of how we build a place that people want to live, work, and play. So it's become very exciting. We also saw, Nippon Steel join us and ensure that U.S. Steel would stay here for the next generation and be part of the solution for the region. We also saw focus on permitting and advocacy and how do we do things better? How do we make opportunities happen for all of us, and how do we do it in an inclusive way that can make opportunities and jobs that are special here and not someplace else? So there's a lot of things going on from that standpoint. My main point, and the reason to speak today, is none of this happens without all of you. The Allegheny Conference plays an important role in convening. The Allegheny Conference plays an important role in thought leadership. And sometimes the Allegheny Conference becomes, the glue that puts together different people. One of the things that I've always admired about this region is that we have 1 degree of separation here. I think most of us have heard the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, and within 6 people you can get to Kevin Bacon one way or the other. Well, here in Pittsburgh it's 1 degree. And every day, it becomes more and more apparent that high-performing regions, they do it by working together. High-performing regions find ways, through thought leadership and through partnership to make things happen. And that's where events like what we're doing today really matter. Because it's not about the speakers and what you hear, it's about the connections that you make and who you find out may do something that you need or that can help make your organization better or that you can make a difference for them. So, we're very excited about it. As part of how we're building the future, and you heard, both the county exec and the mayor talk about it, but as part of building the future, we needed a plan. 3 years ago, we brought a group of people together, invited as many people as we could, and we said, where do we need to go? How can the Allegheny Conference be a part of that? And what should we build? And what became very clear to everyone was we needed to revitalize the downtown core. If you have a healthy core, the region will do well. And as an organization, we committed ourselves to that. ultimately leading to a $600 million partnership where many of you wrote checks, the government, state and local both wrote checks, and we partnered with entrepreneurial individuals who had ideas that needed to be built upon. And we developed a $600 million plan to revitalize the city, to bring both jobs, education, opportunities in terms of housing, and places to go when you get here. All of that is starting to come together. We're very proud of Arts Landing and the work that Kendra and the Cultural Trust have done that will open up on time. It's ready to go. A few things have got to happen, you know, and if any of you know like horticulture, we could use your help this week, you know, now that the snow is gone. But it's coming together. Market Square is coming together. Point State Park is coming together. Things are starting to evolve. You've seen what's happening, you know, on the streets. And all of it is a step in the right direction, and we should be very proud of that. With that said, the number one thing that I hear repeatedly is we need more. We need to do more. We need the foundations to help. We need the corporate community to help. We need the academic community to help. We need everyone helping. And we're going to do that. As we finish up this first round, and the draft is an important part of this first round, the draft is about bringing people and inviting them to come over for Thanksgiving, making sure they have a good experience, and making sure they want to come back to our houses again next year. It's a special moment, but it's just the beginning. So for the Allegheny Conference, you know, we want to thank you. We want to thank the work that you're doing. We want to thank your partner for your partnership. And we want you to understand that, you know, we agree. Now we've got to start working on the next level. And shortly we will begin that. As we get through the draft, as we open up these places for people to go and enjoy, you know, as we work on the things that we know need to be worked on in the region, we will now start focusing on the next level. And we're going to ask you for your help, for your ideas, and your commitment to be able to do that as we build for the next generation. So I'm very excited about that. In fact, one of our partners is here today who's going to help us do that. So, and I'm going to screw this up, you know, Tina, so please forgive me. But our next speaker, you know, is from Giant Eagle. She's responsible for, you know, their real estate development and all of their construction. And as you know, Giant Eagle's been a critical partner with the food banks, has been a critical partner to all of us. And, you know, and periodically we probably all buy some groceries from them. So it's my pleasure to introduce Tina Marasic. Did I get it right? Okay, you got to give me at least applause for that. You know, I mean, so Tina, why don't you come on up?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for including Giant Eagle and Market District in today's event. We are a very proud sponsor of the Allegheny Conference. On behalf of everyone at Giant Eagle, I'm thrilled to participate. With 30,000 team members, Giant Eagle joins community partners such as UPMC, Highmark, PNC, and others as consistently being among the 10 biggest employers throughout our region. We've made considerable and notable investments into our existing stores and into new former Rite Aid, Giant Eagle Pharmacy locations this year, and we are very excited to continue to grow and appreciate the valuable work of the Allegheny Conference and its partners for the continued support that enables this good work. This year, we're celebrating 95 years at Giant Eagle, and with continued investment, we plan to serve our community for another 95. Last year, our region saw more than $16 billion in capital investment, the strongest year in over a decade. Let me say that again, $16 billion, the strongest year in over a decade. These projects have been described as landmark wins and record-breaking investments, and they certainly are. But what matters most isn't just that we landed them, it's what we do with them. Today's conversation about how we translate that momentum into something more lasting, how we turn major investment into workforce opportunity, stronger communities, and long-term regional growth. And while these projects are located in specific counties, we'll hear from the panel, Indiana to Beaver to Westmoreland, they are not isolated wins. They are part of a broader, more connected ecosystem that is shaping the future of our region. An ecosystem that is tied to advanced manufacturing, energy generation, grid infrastructure, and the very rapidly evolving AI and data centers. These industries and the opportunities they create, they don't stop at county lines. The impact of these projects are going to be felt across the region, and how we respond on workforce, our infrastructure, housing, the supply chain, will determine how broadly the impact is shared among us. So today, we're going to focus on what it takes to move from announcement to impact, and how we ensure these investments benefit not just individual communities, but the entire region. So I'd like to welcome to the stage our three panelists as I make brief introductions for each of them. You can make your way to the stage. I'm joined today by a group of leaders who have been directly involved in not only landing, but also advancing these projects, and who are now focused on what it takes to support the long-term success. First, Jason Ragone, Executive Director of Westmoreland County Industrial Development Corporation. Byron Stauffer, Executive Director of the Indiana County Industrial Development Corporation. And Lou Velotti, President of Beaver County Corporation for Economic Development. I'm Morassic, so I understand, I'm sorry. Thank you all for being here. Let's start the conversation. Okay, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited to have this discussion, not just about these wins, but how we move forward with them. So each of you played a really significant role in development inside of Indiana, Beaver, and Westmoreland counties. I'm thinking about the Homer City redevelopment in Indiana County, Mitsubishi, Hitachi, and Frontier between Westmoreland and Beaver. And I'd like to know from you, beyond even just the economic impact, how might this help to develop and change the identity of the community and the county? And then further, how does that extend beyond the respective counties and affect our neighbors?
Well, let me start off by first saying thank you to the conference for inviting the three of us to speak. I think I speak on behalf, or I'm comfortable in saying that we're excited to supporting the region. Obviously, we represent our individual counties from an economic development perspective, but we certainly recognize that this industry that's being, the investment that's taking place is going to have that regional impact. We as economic developers, our daily job is to provide that liaison support, build a strong foundation for investment to take place, whether it's in manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. Obviously, a conversation today is regarding data centers and AI. So we're excited to play that role. We're also very excited to support many of the private businesses that are really taking the risk, making the investment, right? We play a small role in that process. But we think we play a critical role, especially at the local level. The conversation for today really focuses on AI, as well as a lot of the manufacturing around electrical grid, high voltage grid manufacturing, things that some are new, some are existing. In terms of data centers and AI, first of all, I'm excited to hear what these two individuals have to say. I know them very well. They've had some significant investment announcements. And so I'm really learning from them on what they're seeing on a regular basis as this moves forward. In terms of what data centers and AI means in Westmoreland County very specifically, we are already having a relationship with a company, Tech Fusion, who has purchased 1,400 acres in the northwestern part of the county. What does that mean in terms of impact? Obviously, there's a data center impact, but first and foremost, they purchased property that was a former Alcoa, then Arconic R&D facility. Although they still have a presence there, it isn't what it once was. And so we're excited to see how, when the data center Tech Fusion takes over the entire property, their investment at that location. It's in a rural part of the county, but it has real potential, talking about getting up to 3 gigawatts of power. But they can't do that alone. And I think we as organizations representing our counties can certainly play a role in trying to remove barriers, to try to provide support, maximize their investment. On the other hand, talking about the electrical grid, we have this existing robust ecosystem of manufacturers already in the region. Companies, as you had mentioned, Hitachi, Mitsubishi making an announcement, GE over in Washington County, Siemens, Westinghouse. And then there's some of those smaller players that a lot of people don't know about. A Cleveland Price that has close to 400 jobs, employees, or a Lighthouse Electric in Washington County, which has hundreds of jobs. And so the interconnection between those two industries are already showing significant impact, not only in our individual counties, but across the region.
Jason, thank you. I really appreciate your and I grew up in Westmoreland County, so Pittsburgh.
You're my favorite already.
Pittsburgher. So thank you for those comments. And and after announcement, we start really thinking about the work of the work. So securing landing, something big is great, but then and it's a lot of work to get to that. But after that, there's so much that needs to be done, and a lot that needs to be done in a really proactive way, because as we know, investment thrives when the community around it can support it and it can ensure sustainability. So as you think about, getting from announcement to deployment, and you're thinking about proactive steps that you might take to support workforce, housing availability, supply chain enablement, perhaps for local vendors that could benefit from this investment and far beyond. What proactive steps, are you considering to ensure the long-term success of a community that can support these investments and can ensure then that these are sustainable for, a long time to come?
Well, again, Byron Stauffer, and again, as Jason mentioned, thank you for having us today. Really appreciate the opportunity to hear what's being said today throughout the presentation. In Indiana County, we were very much anticipating the closure of the Homer City Power Plant. We also have a long legacy of energy generation, coal, natural gas, in throughout the county and supporting the region as we look back over many decades. We actually have 3 power plants currently in Indiana County, two active with Homer City in its current redevelopment phase, and then over in the border, a lot of folks that work at the Keystone Power Plant also live in Indiana. So regionally, it's very impactful in terms of the energy sector. So when it was GE went into bankruptcy that owned the Homer City site in 2017, it was owned by a number of investors, particularly Knighthead Capital, that ultimately came out of the bankruptcy as the owners, and really ran and operated the power plant through its decommissioning in 2023. Could no longer be competitive in the marketplace. So as this opportunity unfolded post decommissioning, there really wasn't a true sense of what was going to happen. We knew we had a grid that was relatively recently invested in. We knew that we had 3,200 acre site. We knew that we had plenty of water. They owned and operated the Tulick Reservoir that supported the power plant, and actually the water for much of Indiana Borough and White Township and some of the other adjacent communities. So we knew that we had a lot of good infrastructure. The opportunity really unfolded, with this AI data center expansion. So plan to move forward. So in meeting with the owners and moving forward, we really rallied. Indiana County, since my tenure there back in '96, started a group called the Center for Economic Operations. Some of my colleagues are here from IUP, but it's the county, the Chamber of Commerce, the Tourist Bureau, the Indiana County Development Corporation, I'm also executive director of, and IUP. So we work together to formulate some strategies. So relative to housing, we started working with Kiewit, the EPC on the project, building the power plant, and found out very quickly that about 4,700 people are going to come and move to our community. So we've been developing RV parks, we've been former student housing sites, working with our realtors. In fact, in November, we had a summit with the Association of Realtors, and as a result, we've landed several housing subdivisions that are starting in the county. So a number of projects are unfolding in the housing. Permitting, my office, I'm also executive director of the planning office, and so land development approvals, building permits, those all went through my shop, working on all those kinds of issues. Working with our Chamber of Commerce and our other partners, working with Kiewit, developing portals, doing entrepreneurship. In fact, we have one on Thursday. So supply chain opportunities, so our local vendors, working with the unions throughout the area, working with our school district. So really, I know throughout the presentations earlier today, talking about partnerships. So it's really about developing those partnerships, everybody working within their spaces and talking and really moving forward with the strategy. So we're very comfortable working with our partners, and the opportunities before us, it's Indiana County's turn as well as Pittsburgh's and other sectors of the region. So it's really about collaborating and partnerships and everybody working together to solve the issues.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thinking ahead about workforce, housing, infrastructure, all of the needs of large investment that will require it to be sustainable. We can't forget, last but certainly not least on that list, is a workforce. And I started by saying that Giant Eagle has 30,000 team members. These jobs alone, over 10,000 jobs we expect to be created, good construction jobs and operations jobs. When you think about the workforce and the preparedness that the region will have to have by way of the workforce and people, can you tell me, Lou, a little bit about any skills gaps that might exist, how we can be best positioned to make sure that we are ready when the investment is to meet that need with the workforce with great jobs?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for everyone for the opportunity. You have to be very intentional. You start with workforce, and we used to talk about it's just a sheer numbers game at some point. How many people do we have? So you start with what it takes to keep and attract a workforce. And so I talk in Louisms sometimes, so I'm just, we have a very specific effort that we do. We call it I sell dogs and strollers. I want companies when they come to our communities to see that people sitting around, walking their dogs, sitting out strollers, having something to eat, so they can envision, first of all, their workforce coming to this location to grow. And we do it very intentionally. Again, we call it helping Bob and Barb's Bagels, so we land worldwide widgets. We invest in those small businesses in communities that increase the vitality of those communities. So when a company comes through, we're bringing someone through, they can envision a place for their workforce to live and enjoy life. We also we work with our industries and our companies very specifically and intentionally, again, to say we want you to come be part of the solution. All right, so let's talk a minute about the industry du jour, which is data centers, right? But when Beaver County is very specific about what we want to see from data centers. There's always, we want you to bring your own power, we want you to be use closed loop water systems. We want you to be in a place that makes sense. We also want you to bring something other than a data center to the table. We want you to establish curriculums that you can help put into our school districts and put into our community colleges that prepare the students not just for jobs at the data center, but what that AI means to them in the future. So we want to do it in a collaborative work with our partners and with our companies, but it needs to be deliberate. You need to have them come to the table and be your partner in this development.
May I add on to that?
Yes.
I think the workforce development portion of this is so important. The number of construction trades-related jobs associated with these projects are just astronomical. Lou's point about being intentional, I think, is very important. I'm not here to tout what Westmoreland County is doing, but in 2018, under our county comprehensive plan, workforce and education was the priority strategy that needed to be addressed for a number of reasons. There was a focusing on trades. So whether it's construction or manufacturing, so many of these things tie into the conversation for today. Right now, our CTCs actually are at their highest point they've been in history. We're seeing a decrease in enrollment in college education, at least in the campuses. In fact, we can talk about Penn State, New Kensington closing, and if anybody wants to use the Penn State, New Kensington campus, please let me know. I'm the guy in charge of reuse, the plan for that. But I think the result is that you see this transition into the CTCs, which will, not say surprisingly, but very fortunately support data center construction, as well as a lot of those electrical manufacturing companies that have long-term presence here in the region.
That's well said, Jason. And Lou, I love what you were saying too, both of you, about these efforts, because they're really going to support making sure students in our region are first in line for these jobs when they're available. So thank you all so much for your leadership, your passion, your forward thinking. We are very grateful for your efforts, and we'll continue to support you however we can as it relates to the sustainability of the community and as we stand everything up. So thank you all so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much to the panel. It is now my pleasure to introduce our next panel. I'm pleased to welcome Jeannie Cunicelli, president of UPMC Enterprises, which was founded more than a decade ago to stay at the forefront of the best ideas in healthcare and drive transformation through innovation. Working at the intersection of UPMC and Pitt, UPMC Enterprises takes an industry-minded approach to building companies grounded in real clinical and patient needs. With a 360-degree view across care, delivery, insurance, research, and commercialization, it plays a critical role in advancing access, quality, and innovation in medicine. It also reflects the kind of collaboration between healthcare, research, and industry that is driving Pittsburgh's growth in this next capital cycle. Please join me in welcoming Jeannie. Welcome, Jeannie.
Hi, thank you so much. Nice to meet you all. So I am a transplant. I came from San Francisco about 8 years ago now, although I'm proud to say I don't consider myself a transplant any longer. Here's what I'll tell you. From afar, what I saw were a couple of things. I had the privilege of knowing David Malone at the time. Many in this room know David. He operated as one of my mentors. It was around the 08-09 period when the entire country was kind of melting. And what I noticed was that Pittsburgh wasn't melting. Instead, Pittsburgh had prepared itself and had been able to navigate through education, through research, through hospital systems, that incredible time where the country had no idea where it was going to end up. And that always resonated with me. The other thing that resonated was the mindset. I know today's themes are about products and process and pathways. But the thing is, all of that makes sense when you have the right people. And the way Pittsburgh is, what I saw from afar and continue to believe today, is there's a humility in how we problem solve. There's a humility in how we work together. And that is what advances these technologies and ideas properly. And so I'm proud, 8 years later, to be the head of UPMC Enterprises. It is actually a real privilege to do so because healthcare, it's healthcare. It's always under challenge. However, we're fortunate in Pennsylvania in that we have one of the most diverse populations in the country. And this region in southwestern PA is one of the most forward-thinking in terms of access and equity and care and how each and every person, it should be a right and not a privilege. And so at Enterprises, what we do is we take the best minds and we advance that thinking either through technological innovations or life sciences innovations. And we reflect Pittsburgh and the southwestern region. We think globally, we can invest globally, but it usually all comes back to Pittsburgh and value back to the southwestern region and back to the UPMC ecosystem. And as Tara mentioned, we're entering this new cycle. I don't even know what to call it because there's such a pace of change and lines are blurring where technology and healthcare and AI is foundational. You can't keep up with it. And I don't think you actually have to think about keeping up with it. You'll hear from the panel in a second about what it means to attract capital and how you focus on moving your businesses forward in this environment. But southwestern PA is uniquely positioned, and as I said, coming from California, I think it should hold some credibility. I'm proud to have transplanted here. The role of healthcare I mentioned, it's just foundational to everything, but so is technology, and so is the industries that are represented here today. The region's strength, it goes on and on and on, and it's grounded in hundreds of years of innovation and hundreds of years of building industries. Today, we're at the forefront, not just of healthcare, but AI, robotics, advanced manufacturing, data centers. The world is trying to find such expertise, and it all sits here. And so I'm so excited to be part of Enterprises because we get to tap into that expertise here and think about investing in companies and people and advancing ideas, not just for healthcare, but for healthcare so that it can enable other industries. And the momentum here is palpable. I've been traveling recently, and it's not as palpable because I think people today, given the pace of change and given the fact that there is so much up in the air, are wondering who are we, what are we about, how do we move ourselves forward? And I don't see that here. And that is because we are so grounded in some of these industries and because of that humility and the people part of the process and the progress and the pathways. And as you may or may not know, Pittsburgh broke into the top 10 US markets for AI and autonomous vehicle venture investments. I say broke in, I'm guessing it'll keep moving up. I understand that we're gonna have some more autonomous vehicles driving around here pretty soon. And then AI has shifted from experimentation to infrastructure. I mentioned it earlier, it is foundational and it needs to be an enabler. It's not in our way. And I think Pittsburgh has grasped that idea, so has all of southwestern Pennsylvania. Seeing more capital flow, several people mentioned 16 billion. That's really fascinating because the increase from the previous year, it's astounding. That is astounding, and each year I would expect that to continue to grow. So I'm pleased to introduce the panel that's coming up next, so we can take my picture down and put that panel up, please. It's an old picture, I promise. But the panel is going to explore what it takes for regions to compete for investment and what conditions are needed to sustain long-term growth. I'm pleased to say that Steve Blanco from MSA Safety, John Engel from Wesco, Sam Kernion from Core Power Magnetics, Chris Krishnan from Crystal Biotech, I see Chris, how are you? And Kara Rapansky, who's going to moderate the panel. They come across industries and sectors, and I'm sure you'll find their perspectives enlightening and comforting to know that we have these kinds of leaders who know and will continue to help us drive innovation in the region. So with that, I'd ask Kara to come on up.
Thank you, Jeannie. And thank you to our panelists for joining today. Steve, Krish, John, and Sam. Great to have you all. And thank you for the opportunity, Stephanie and ACCD, to moderate this panel and be a part of today's conversation. As David said, as Jeannie indicated, we are having a moment in this city, and the energy is palpable. And marry that up with the interesting market forces and the capital investment cycle that we are currently in. It is a new investment cycle like no other, shaped by AI, electrification, supply chain reimagination, and major new infrastructure needs and builds. Capital is moving quickly like never before, but it's even more selective than it's ever been. And regions that succeed, as David said, are the ones that tend to work together, stronger together, and have not only strong companies, but strong leadership willing to engage on coordinated efforts, long-term strategy, and align the business policy, talent, and infrastructure. So today, we will be exploring what's driving those investment decisions and what regions, specifically our region, must do to compete. So feel free to jump in as you'd like. We didn't want to be too structured because we have such great leaders and minds here and would just love folks to share their thoughts, and we'll jump in. When you think about your company's next major investments, whether it's facilities, technology, supply chain, or talent, what are 2 or 3 major factors that matter most right now?
I guess I'll start. Wesco, Fortune 200 company. Some of you may have a deep knowledge of Wesco. We have very deep roots in Pittsburgh. Wesco stands for Westinghouse Electric Supply Company. So we were founded in 1922 as a captive distribution arm in Westinghouse. Became a separate company in 94, $1.5 billion in sales and losing money. And here we are last year at $23.5 billion in sales. So we're big. We're in 50 countries around the world, and we're a leader in electrical communications and utility markets. Of that $23.5 billion in sales annually last year, $4.3 billion was data centers. So we are serving the data center market in a major way, and obviously that's a big part of our investment. We're looking at 3 things when we invest. First, markets. Markets got to be growing. The markets we're in have secular growth. AI-driven data centers, increased power generation, IT-OT convergence, electrification, and reshoring. There's a massive movement on front of supply chains being re-engineered and reshoring back to the U.S. as part of an industrial renaissance. So markets are critical. Secondly, supply chains. We're a global supply chain management solution company. We're investing in our supply chain capabilities. We serve 90% of the Fortune 100 companies directly as an end customer. Finally, digitalization. We're going through a massive digital business transformation. We're more than halfway through that. We will completely be on all brand new systems for a Fortune 200 company in over 50 countries around the world. When we're done, all systems new, one world-class data lake, single global instance, all our big data hydrated in it. We're applying AI against it. We're already seeing the benefits of AI. So really pleasure to be here today. I look forward to this discussion. I can tell you that the Pittsburgh region is exceptionally well positioned to take advantage of this secular growth because the biggest constraint is power, and this region has it.
Let me jump in a little bit after John. Boy, it's bright. I hope this isn't affecting you out there. Steve Blanco, MSA, Safety. We've been in the region. We were founded here almost 112 years ago. Based on innovation, we continue to innovate. And I think as you asked that question, similar to John in some categories, but I think of the customer first and what's the customer need, and then how do we really support that need. So if you look back in our history, you know, historically, the legacy of the company is product driven. But if you look in the last 10, and then as you go forward, it's really shifting to solutions. We still have products, that's a foundation, but it's about solutions. And when you think of what we invest and where we invest, it's how do we support those solutions? And how do we ensure that we use data as a strategic asset? And that's really what I think is different and what AI provides. So a lot of the investment we have today isn't just like the hardcore infrastructure, It's around software. It's around preparing ourselves to ensure we can continue to support that customer in the journey they're on, because data has just become so critical to their success and the insights that data provides. It's just a completely different world. A decade ago, our R&D team, we probably had 5, 6 software engineers for all of research and development. Guess what? It's over 50% today. And that's just the, that's the trend we'll continue to see. And I think that then leads to the next piece, your second part of that, or the number 2. It's talent. It's being able to acquire and maintain, retain the talent that enables you to innovate into the future. That's, for us, that's a big deal.
Yeah, so Crystal, hi, thanks for having me. So Crystal Biotech, we're in genetic medicine, and we primarily focus on rare orphan diseases and indications. And orphan indications usually affect less than maybe 20,000 patients in the US. A lot of times it's 5 to 10,000 patients. We've been around for about 10 years. And when you hear the word genetic medicine or biotech, people often think of innovation, and that's a very important aspect of a biotech company. But the real value, the value growth for a biotech is being able to get a consistent, reliable medicine to patients around the world. And when you think about that step, it involves manufacturing, which Crystal Biotech, over the last 10 years, we built 2 manufacturing facilities. One's on the south side, one's in Moon Township by the airport. We wanted control, especially when you're delivering a genetic medicine. It is important. The quality, the requirement of quality is important. So manufacturing was a big investment for us in our space, and then being able to get the medicine to patients around the world. We're now approved in the US, we're approved in France and Germany and Japan, and a couple other countries coming up. And so being able to get all the drug that's manufactured in Pittsburgh safely, effectively, and retain the quality, frozen in some cases, to all these different countries involves a big investment in supply chain. So in terms of factors of investment, besides research, which is obvious for a biotech company, manufacturing, supply chain, and as he mentioned, talent, we need experienced individuals who are trained in genetic medicine. And so we spend a lot of time looking for bright minds in Pittsburgh and getting them to learn and understand the technology we are working with and kind of make them part of the organization.
Cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Sam Carnian, the CEO of Core Power. Thank you for having me again here today. A little bit different of a story. We're only about 5 years old, formed in June of 2020, spun out of Carnegie Mellon University. And a lot of our investment right now being high growth and making magnetic components for data centers and grid applications is really around manufacturing. Obviously, we have that innovation aspect. The talent piece is big for us, but really what we've seen is the change, especially with more protectionist policies and the supply chain uncertainty there, verticality and just overall control of the supply chain has been really important for us. So we're excited to be expanding in the region, hoping to put in a large-scale steel manufacturing facility here. We've got some good news hopefully to share here relatively soon about funding and where that will be. But it's really around finding sites, power, and the region here is just perfectly poised for companies like ours to grow and expand because of, again, just that combination of talent and power that's here in the region. So excited to grow here today and continue the conversation.
Great. Thank you all. As discussed, lots is going on in the world right now. We got AI, energy, automation, geopolitics on top of all of that. And we're talking a lot about reindustrialization, supply chain resilience. When you think about that, what capabilities might companies in the US be considering building domestically? And what could that mean for our region?
Well, I'll jump in first. So capabilities, gosh, that's a lot of stuff, right? I think the technology side continues to evolve at a much faster rate. Somebody mentioned earlier speed. This dialogue around AI and digitalization, it's not that, it's not a question of if you're going to do that, it's really how fast can you apply it? Because I look at, in our organization, you look at it a competitive landscape and where the customer wants to go, and I think AI is going to be a real driver behind that. And it's about speed and accuracy. So I think that for us as an industry and for us as an organization, we innovate well, it takes us way too long. So when we think of what the customer gives us an insight on, how quickly can we turn that around and innovate and provide a solution, it's going to be super critical. And then that flows through for every single stakeholder we have. So, you know, whether it be the organizations that support us in Pittsburgh, whether it be the supply chain, they're just moving too slow. And we're at a point, and I think this regionally, we do so much really effectively, but just the institutions and who we are, and organizations, this is us too, we don't move at the speed with which we need to move. We continue to think in ways that have been there for 10, 20, 30 years, and we've got to get ourselves past that, because people are doing that, and doing that more effectively, I think, is going to be really important.
I mean, the speed, the value, if we just take a data center customer, we serve the hyperscalers direct, MTDC customers, enterprise class. Speed to value is their optimizing equation. So how fast can they stand up a data center? I talk about a big three constraints. First is energy or power. It's got to be available, it's got to be reliable, it's got to be affordable. What's the good news about Western PA, Southwestern or Western PA? Have the power. Again, we're serving these data center customers around the globe, and I can tell you that is the number one constraint. They're searching for where they can get access to power. We have that unique position that we got to leverage. So that's a huge constraint. We don't have that constraint. Second constraint is workforce, but I'm going to be very specific. You heard it from the earlier panel. Skilled trades. You look across America, we're not 100,000 short, we're not 500,000 short, we're millions short. Because you look at the last several decades, and manufacturing that was systematically outsourced to other low-cost countries, and you had folks that would not enter the trade schools. I can tell you that is a major constraint, and that's an area that we as a region, we can't get by with just moving the resources in for these mega projects. We're going to have to work that pipeline ground up and start rebuilding the trades here. So that's a critical component. And finally, and I have a bias in this, supply chain. So the global pandemic did something that the world never thought could happen. No black swan prediction predicted that the world would shut down in a synchronized manner. That's what the global supply chains did because of the pandemic. It put an electron microscope on these global extended supply chains, and many companies over decades became single-sourced with an extended supply chain that started in countries and, on the other side of the planet. And if you do an enterprise risk management on that and say, what if that gets shut down, what would happen? No one thought that could happen. Well, it happened. So what's happening now is massive supply chain re-engineering and reshoring back to the US. And that's terrific. But the problem is, for most critical product components, you're back to lead times that existed pre-pandemic. There's still critical components that have extended lead times. You heard that referred to earlier. I'll just pick transformers. High voltage transformers have 24 to 36 months lead time. Even if you had the power, even if you had the skilled trades lined up and you're ready to execute a project, you can't get the high voltage transformer for 24 to 36 months. So those are my big three. I think the good news is we got the first one nailed here. The second one I know we're working on to some degree. We really got to work the skilled trades. The third one, look, we can help, other companies can help. There is massive investment being made in capacity expansion. Some of the major companies that have large operations around Pittsburgh, a number were mentioned earlier. I'd add Eaton to the mix. they're a big supplier partner of ours, are adding significant capacity expansion to build the electrical equipment. But those are the big three.
Well, our need for urgency is a bit different because patients are suffering from these diseases, and there's always a speed to market issue when it comes to biotech, and a lot of these diseases have mortality associated with them. So traditionally, bringing a drug fast to market is a requirement of all, if not of all, biotech companies. And so from an innovation perspective, one of the areas we're looking at is how to innovate a bit faster. As most of you know, biotech is more an industry of failure than an industry of success. 9 out of 10 innovative ideas never make it into the clinic, and if they made it into the clinic, never make it to a patient. And so Crystal as a company is starting to think about how can we speed up innovation, where we're starting to think about using AI in helping us understand or eliminate a few combinations that we would spend months exploring. So that's one big aspect. And the second big aspect of importance is something John mentioned a few minutes ago. We need an alternative source. Now, we were fortunate enough to fully integrate manufacturing from the day we began operations, so we're not dependent on a third party, but as the scale of the company gets bigger and bigger, we need alternate sources in the unlikely event something happens, either geopolitically or not, especially as we are serving patients in so many different countries at the moment. So another big area of investment is just redundant investment on something we already have, just to ensure supply stability in the long run.
Yeah, I'd just add on the electrical component cluster, I think that's a huge opportunity for the region. I think we hear about robotics, healthcare, AI generally, but there's a number of firms and companies that have been here for a long time doing it, and new ones like Core Power coming along. And it really can be a huge cycle generator in terms of that talent as well, just in terms of having folks that are creating that jobs, creating that competition to help build that. And I think that's really where the manufacturing can come from, that can be durable beyond just maybe this period that could be transitory, right, in terms of tariffs and protectionism, that we can have that innovation cycle with universities and have an advanced manufacturing in that area that we already have a great basis in. So I think it's going to be a key area for growth. And I would just encourage, too, I think the region needs to rethink how we picture manufacturing, and because of the legacy of steel making, which I'm very proud of and we have a key part in as well, it's different now. And I think that there also has to be, frankly, some education, just marketing to the broader community about what this means. This isn't smokestacks and everything else. I think the people in this room get that, but a lot of folks out there that I speak to really don't understand this isn't really the way that it was done before, but completely new and safe and a great way to make a living. And really putting that out there in a way, in a concerted effort, and having that type of messaging could, I think, have a big impact as well.
I mean, it's a great point, because the customers that are moving capability and capacity back to the U.S., it is occurring. I'm telling you, it's occurring at a massive rate. You're not reading a lot about it. They're not just lifting and shifting, though. They're not just lifting and shifting that. They're re-engineering the business. So the facilities they're building are smarter, they're much more flexible, much higher electronics content. It's very different than what existed on, the state of affairs of their manufacturing footprint when they outsourced it, whether it was a decade, 2 or 3 decades ago. So that, we could play a major role in that. We look at the strong companies across this region in that value chain. Yeah. They can be instrumental player in building out the factory of the future as part of the reindustrialization of America. Absolutely.
I think that's a perfect segue. As companies think about where to invest or expand, what are some non-negotiables the regions, particularly our region, must get right to catch that?
Look, for us, speed, as I mentioned, is critical. I think it's important, like, if a region has a bunch of assets, and I define assets as there is a university, there's a couple companies, maybe the local government and the civic service, it's important for a region to have these assets connected as opposed to keep doing their own thing. And so the more a region can foster a way to connect the university with the, as I call ourselves, a biotech company, to the city government and to the civic service, I think that's essential, which is one of the reasons we were able to build a biotech company in Pittsburgh. So that was an important aspect for us. The second is talent. It's not like we're in a unique space where we use a viral vector to deliver a gene to a patient. And it's not like there's many people, even in this country, who have done it, especially the vector we used before. So talent was important, and we were fortunate to get a lot of students from UPitt and Carnegie Mellon and Penn State and kind of train them in the science that we were involved in and bring them up to speed. So over the last 10 years, if you look at Crystal Biotech, I would easily say that 95% of our current management and senior management are people who just came out of school, have had 1 or 2 years of experience 10 years ago. So we've been very organic in the way we built Crystal here, and it was thanks to the talent this community had that enabled us to get to where we are. So we haven't had too many senior scientists imported from other states. The majority of Crystal Biotech is local and homegrown from the local universities, which was something remarkable, and I don't think many because biotech companies tend to be in San Francisco or Cambridge or San Diego for the most part. They cluster in those regions, and it's kind of very unique to see that such a thing can be done in this region.
I agree. I think Chris hit it. I would say that talent would probably be the first on my list. But, you know, there's the obligatory infrastructure needs, energy. If you're going to keep people, the quality of life is critically important. You heard the mayor talk about safety a little bit. I think Stephanie referenced his work around that. Those seem so fundamental, we forget them sometimes, but once you lose them, they're a huge issue. But I absolutely agree with that. You know, those things around talent and people that want to be here, and you want to make sure you've got the ease of doing business, the energy that John referenced earlier, those are all things that just help you make that decision. It makes it a little easier on where you want to put your money.
I agree with all that. I think, again, you can have vision, the opportunity can be there. Can you execute? Can you execute with speed? Because if we come back to just AI, make no mistake, this is a competitive race. More competitive than anything I've seen across in my career, and I think any of us in the room have seen in our career. So you actually have to win that race, and the way you win that race is speed of execution, speed to value again. So, you know, that's where I think the private-public partnerships are vital. You know, the Allegheny Conference does a terrific job, but we've got to get on the government side much faster, a fast and predictable development and planning and permitting framework that can execute consistently and with speed. And I think if we do that, we can, you know, in conjunction, got to have the talent. You can't do any of it without the talent, but given talent, you got to be able to build and expand to support and capture this growth because you're competing against all the other regions. And so you got to be able to execute and execute with speed.
Yeah, I don't think I have too much else to add there. I think you guys said it well. Make it easy. I mean, that's basically it. It's got to be moving fast, make it easy, help to understand what has to get, you know, what you have to do to get it done, and then execute on it as quickly as you can, because again, it's competitive. So.
Okay, well said. Thank you all. It's been mentioned by a few of you as well as by Tina, the importance of connected ecosystems and regions to make them succeed. Obviously, everyone thinks that's very important to do. What kind of coordination could we do more of in this region to drive some of this impact and growth and acceleration?
I think kind of building off of what I just said before, it's probably a good connection there. Well, number one, I want to say a thank you to a lot of people in the region. When we started off, and I was employee 1 in June of 21, when you're in that type of situation and you start looking externally and just the amount of support that we got, where it felt like we had team members outside of the outside of the company that were all cheering for us and helping us. I think there is a lot of that already going on. So I think that's, it's one of the strengths of the region that I've seen for a company like ours, that there's a lot of excitement around building and wanting to see startups grow here regionally. I'd say generally from coordination, it's, there's a lot of different ways that companies can be incentivized or feel like they're welcome to build here and to put their, to expand. I think one of the things I've seen is that coordination between the state, county, local, all that's been very good so far. I would say compared to when we have talked to other states and others, it can kind of feel like we're reaching out and it's like a car dealer. Makes it very easy. They're trying to just get you to make that deal. I was just at the DMV this morning. It all went very well. It took a half hour. I need to get my license renewed. It felt a little bit like that, at least, again, this was a few years back in talking with the state in terms of there's all these processes and this is how you kind of figure this out. Kind of left it either to you or we can help answer questions, but it was very process-oriented versus kind of making that sale. So I think that coordination has greatly improved over that time period too, since we've had those conversations, but kind of continuing on that pathway. And I think everything that we're doing to build up momentum and just the overall improvements that we've been seeing just between, again, the state, the county, the sites program is a great example. It's all hitting the right areas. So I just think we just kind of keep the momentum going forward.
I can completely agree. There's great momentum. Stephanie used the word momentum. So terrific progress, actually positive momentum. I think a lot of all the right things are in place. I think the operative word is accelerate, because the digital and physical infrastructure are converging. I know companies are trying to attack this as they digitalize and then position, to unlock the power of their business, improve it via AI. But we got to think about that across the region as well. And it's good to hear you had a good process at the DMV. I'm shocked, but again, I mean, there's another measure though. If digital and physical infrastructure come together, how fast? What's the cycle time? How fast could you get through those kind of processes? But I mean, as related to what we're talking about here, supporting the build process, I think it's vital.
I just want to add. Look, a lot of times when new companies come or start growing, they don't have a lot of time to go connect with the local community. You need like a third party to kind of facilitate the connection, just like the way today's meeting is, where you get to meet different people and what they're doing. And so I will say, when I heard the mayor inviting companies to his office and asking them about whether small or big or what, that's a good first step, because a lot of us, like I remember when we first started in 2016, for the first 4 years, we had zero interaction with the outside. We were so focused on the research, and we didn't have time to be proactive, connecting with the university or connecting with the local city. And so the Life Sciences Organization in Pittsburgh and now the mayor's office, I think a lot of these organizations are vital to bring a company into the fold. And we're starting to see more and more of that happening, which is great.
Relationships matter. I think David Oldenburg brought that up. They matter. They continue to matter. I think everybody said that. And Pittsburgh does it very well. I give you an example of another region, excuse me, a few years ago, where we have a plant and we made a significant investment. When you have public officials, elected officials come in and they know how many people you employ, they know your payroll, they know the taxes you've paid, and they talk to you about thanking you for the investment. I mean, that's a big deal. And I believe we're on that journey where we're getting that cohesiveness, and the conference is at the center of that, but relationships really matter.
Absolutely. Relationships and partnerships and the interconnectedness. Are there any unusual suspects who are not yet at the table as partners that should be in our region?
I think you've got most, and we continue to develop a pretty broad brush of, all of the key stakeholders. I'm not sure that I would say there's anybody missing. I think us opening our arms and, on both the public and private sector to continue to build that is really important. I'm not sure that I would see one missing.
I don't see anyone missing, but to me, again, I think stay the course, good structure, but accelerate again, right? Invest in it and accelerate. I don't think there's anyone, I don't know, missing.
I think generally it's very strong. I think our, just I guess from the startup perspective, and I know there's been some articles about this recently, a lot of the investment we've received has been mostly from the Chicago area. So love to see more large venture capital in the area. No, that's more aspirational than saying this is how you do it, but I think that's one area for sure, so we can get those returns back here and kind of reinvest.
No, I second that comment, especially in biotech. I heard UPMC making big investments a few minutes ago, but if you think about those centers, as I mentioned, San Francisco or Boston or San Diego, the one thing that's missing in Pittsburgh is this venture capital, and especially in biotech. And I think that comes when there are more companies that start to build up and there's more association between the university and the companies. I think venture capital will come. It's more of a derived type into the system, but that's definitely missing in biotech, in my opinion.
That makes sense, and great answers. And we are a strong region with much participation and collaboration, which is excellent. I think, but I wouldn't be from McKinsey if I wasn't constantly asking how everyone can do better and be better. So another frame of that question, is there any friction in the ecosystem now that we should be thinking about how to remove or improve upon?
I think we touched on a number of areas. Again, I'll just repeat. Planning development and permitting framework. I know it's being worked on, but again, we got to make that fast, predictable, consistent, and it can never be fast enough.
I think we should be afraid of not having any friction. If we're not at the table having dialogue and discussions about where there's differences. That's how we've made progress on some of those things. Permitting is a great example where I think the conference has really stepped in and some of the leaders. But if you're not having that dialogue, and you might have a slightly different viewpoint on how to get somewhere, so we just have to continue, you use the term partnership, we have to continue working on that. But boy, if we start violently agreeing with each other, then we're in trouble, right? We got to have differing opinions to get better. So I think that friction, if it's differing opinions and we respect where people come from, and we at least can find that center path and say, this is the vision, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, friction-wise, permitting, I think we all go through that. That's the only thing that comes to mind right now. The relationship with the universities has been good to date.
Yeah, agreed. Nothing else to add there.
All right, just in terms of a last question, any advice for the audience, for the business leaders in the room, as to how everyone can continue to show up even stronger in this future state of the world that we've been talking about?
My only thought on that matter is the way Crystal has grown over the 10 years. I think there's just amazing talent in the Pittsburgh area, and it takes a certain amount of patience to get them trained in your space. And then, because a lot of them love living in this region, now you have an employee who's committed to the organization, which is great for a company like biotech. Like, one of the big issues biotech companies face in Boston is a constant transition between companies. Every other day, someone's gotten another job, and because there's 50 of them over there. What we've benefited from is because we invested time and effort in the local community. We have a very solid base of amazing employees in our organization who we believe will continue until Crystal keeps going. So because A, they want to be in the region, and B, we have been spending a lot of time investing in these employees. So my only point there is there's a lot of talent in this region. Somebody just has to take the time and effort to build up that talent.
I completely agree with that. It's amazing talent in the region. And again, we're We're a large number of smaller locations. We're not a manufacturer, so again, we're in over 50 countries. I can tell you our headquarters are here, our deep roots is here. Wouldn't trade it for any other location. I think it's a source of our competitive advantage, quite frankly. Just the fundamental skill set, the values. I'd say continue to invest in your employees and in the region. And you know, we launched an enterprise-wide AI set of training curriculum this year, and look, and it's very aggressive actually. So. We've not been public on the number of agents we expect to have operational by year end, but we've already have true agentic AI operating. And so, look, this is the next wave. You've got to invest in your talent.
Yeah, we just say, what I think about I think everyone's very focused obviously on data centers, AI, and everything that's happening there. You know, there was a time when people were talking about a bubble. I'm not sure if that still exists at this point or if we're just kind of full steam ahead, but there will be something next, right? And I would encourage everybody, I know I think about this a lot, but what is that next thing? And how can we make sure that we have a sustainable advantage beyond the cycles that come and go here? I'm not sure exactly what that's going to be, but I think we have so many assets that we could bring to the table. We want to make sure that we're leading and not just reacting. And again, I think what we've worked on, I think, as an area in terms of community, in terms of power and sites and areas of thinking a lot about manufacturing, has really helped to reposition the region and have that momentum. But I think we have an opportunity to be really proactive and keep building on that. So really looking forward to seeing what comes next.
The only thing I'd say is involvement. I think we've done a nice job. Obviously, if you're in the room, you're probably engaged and involved. But if you looked at the area and the region and the number of either private organizations or elected officials that don't plug in, that you know, please remind them to get involved. I mean, how many colleagues or peers might we have that may complain about what's not going on or what we're not getting done? Freaking join the conference, right? Get in the middle of it. So if you want to change something, be part of this, be part of a partnership or build a relationship. And many of you are, but I would encourage you, implore you to please, when somebody whines or bitches about complains about Pittsburgh, go back to them and say, you know, I got a way you can help that. Get involved. We can all support that. We live here, right? Nobody wants it to be better than the people that live here.
Absolutely, I love that. Well, thank you all. This was a great discussion and appreciate you sharing your insights with the room.
Please welcome back to the stage, Stephanie Pashman.
All right, that was something. To quote Steve Blanco, frickin' join the conference, right? How about that? But more importantly, it's really validating to hear this group of leaders building companies right here in this region across a variety of verticals who can find the same thing that makes it work. And those things define our comparative advantage, whether it's energy, partnership, robust talent pools, innovation. They're all saying the same thing, and it really inspires all of us. As we come to the close of today's meeting, I just want to pause, not to look back nostalgically, but to take a little bit of stock at how we've moved forward together. As John said, there's momentum. I love what he said about accelerating. 3 years ago, we made a deliberate choice, a choice to move beyond managing challenges and start building towards opportunity, a choice to invest in growth, to compete globally, and to believe deeply that Western Pennsylvania's future could be bigger and bolder than its past. We took a cue from those who came before us, and we began to spur our own renaissance. And over the last few years, the choice has produced momentum, real momentum. We have strengthened the economic foundation of this region, we've attracted new investment, accelerated innovation, and elevated our competitiveness on a national and global stage. We've helped re-energize downtown as the economic and civic heart of the region. We are bringing new urgency, new activity, and new confidence to how our core connects to surrounding neighborhoods and communities. We've advanced transformational initiatives like the Build Back Better Regional Cluster Challenge, positioning us to lead in robotics and advanced technologies, not as isolated strengths, but as engines that power manufacturing, supply chains, and entirely new industries. And alongside growth, we have been clear about what sustains it. We have worked to advance policy frameworks that create the right conditions for success, policies that support investment, like permitting reform, talent attraction, innovation, and long-term competitiveness. Because growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens when we all decided to choose alignment, clarity, action. It happens when we follow the Pittsburgh way, collaboration and partnership. This year, we relied on our network connectors, a curated group of influential leaders who are actively opening doors and accelerated business growth in our region together. But if the 3 years were about building momentum, the next years are about scale. We're entering a defining chapter for this region, and it belongs to all of us. The Allegheny Conference exists to align, to convene, to push, to think bigger and act faster. But it only happens when all of you join us, when you stay engaged, you stay ambitious, and you stay committed. And in the coming weeks, the world's eyes will be on this city. Through the NFL draft, Pittsburgh will take the world stage, not as a host city, but as a symbol of resilience, reinvention, and possibility. It is a reminder that this region knows how to show up, how to lead, how to tell a story, and do it with confidence. But even as we welcome the world, we will turn inward, toward the future we all want to choose to build together. The next question in front of us is not just what we accomplished, but what we can achieve next. Over the next 3 years, or 1,000 days, we will ask some hard and necessary questions. In this evolving, disrupted, fast-moving global economy, what is it that we want to be? What do we want to do? Where do we want to move faster, think differently, and act more boldly? And the answers will not come from any one of us or one institution. Over the months, we will be setting tables, such as our Regional Growth Series or industry roundtables, to plan that future together. We will gather market intelligence, we will lead with clarity, with urgency, and with the shared belief that this region can and must continue to compete at the highest level. The horizon is coming into view, and this opportunity is ours to seize. It's ours to shape. So I just want to end by thanking all of you for your leadership, your partnership, for showing up. Thank you for believing in what's next for this region, for the Allegheny Conference. The future is ours to build, and we will. But in the meantime, take the opportunity to look at our 2025 annual report, reflecting on the results we have achieved, and our 2026 work plan, our roadmap for this coming year. And now I look forward to joining you for some coffee and some cookies and connecting with each of you. Thank you again for being here today.